Hi, I'm Juliet.
And I'm Peter.
And I'm a licensed therapist.
And I'm too deep into film to quit now.
And this is Intrusive Plots, a podcast about OCD in movies and TV. We are back. Hello, plotters.
Don't. Come on.
I've been practicing. Hi, plotters. Hello, plotters.
When you say plotters, who do you mean exactly?
Our followers, the people who are...
No, I want names, because I feel like there's
my
four.
My mom, my stepdad, Katie.
Zach,
Jordan.
Does Jordan listen to this?
Sometimes. And maybe some of the Patreon family.
Oh, you're right. So I gotta come to the next... they're the plotters. I gotta go to that next hangout thing.
Tonight.
That's today.
5 p.m.
If you're listening to this, that hangout is long past. I'm so sorry.
You're right.
There's no way you can come to
it's old news.
June 17th Patreon
but you
hangout.
can come to the July Patreon hangout, TBD.
Yes, more people will go to that Patreon hangout than will listen to this podcast. So
probably
you'll get a bigger crowd over there.
All right, Peter, why don't you take it away with the introduction to this movie? And this is a fan favorite.
You don't want to say the name of the movie?
Oh, yeah. So this movie is called... I'm going to act it out. Turtles All the Way Down. For those of you who are...
I'm sorry. Okay.
For those of you who are listening, Peter just did not give me any emotional expression. And I thought that his Zoom froze. But it did not freeze. He was just deadpanning my joke.
Oh my God. All right. So this is the big one. This is the one that, along with like two other movies, inspired us to do this podcast in the first place. Pretty much everyone asked for this one every time we put out an episode. It's kind of why we saved it for last, because if we didn't, you would not sit through some of these other movies, let's be real. Originally, it was Turtles All the Way Down was a young adult novel that came out in 2017. John Green, the author, says, yes, that is the book.
I pulled her out. I got her ready. Ugh. That didn't sound good.
You whipped her out? You got her ready?
I whipped her out. I whipped out this bad book. Well, good book. Bad boy. Ugh.
All right.
We're out of practice. It's been a minute.
I don't know. I think we're doing great. The author, John Green, says, "This is my first attempt to write directly about the kind of mental illness that has affected my life since childhood. So while the story is fictional, it is also quite personal." And yeah, I personally get that too. I'm very glad that we have this book and this movie to talk about, especially aimed at a younger audience. Juliet, we've talked about this, but for those of you that are under the age of like 17, do we have fans under the age of 17? Zach, are you under 17?
Steve, are you under 17?
Yeah.
We're going to have to do a poll, and our followers will have to tell us their demographics.
We'll do a poll, and if it's like over 2 people that are like under 17, I'll really have to watch what I say on this thing.
Oh my goodness. You're right.
Yeah, right? John Green and his brother Hank were some of the OG YouTubers from like 2007 onwards. They have this series called The Vlog Brothers. And basically the concept of the Vlog Brothers is they'd post public videos to each other formatted like letters to each other, but they eventually would stop making it about letters and start just talking about things that are interesting to them. I was never quite the audience for the Vlog Brothers, but if you were a millennial teenage girl, there is a 60% chance you watched every single one of those videos. I think my wife marathoned all their videos a few years ago. I have never heard of anyone marathoning a YouTube channel. That was the effect of the Vlog Brothers.
I didn't know who the Vlog Brothers were until Peter and I were watching this movie, and he was like, yeah, the Vlog Brothers. And I was like, who are they?
So I'm showing my age by referencing a phenomenon that I was not the target audience for.
Indeed.
There's a lot I like about John Green and Hank Green. I love that they're just kind of Midwestern dads. Compared to other authors and YouTubers, their lives are extremely ordinary. Usually immense creative success comes with like this horrible burnout, and it looks like they don't have that. Usually you get neither or both.
And when I was watching some of the like interviews with the cast from Turtles, they were talking about how like throughout the filming process, John Green, like he lives in Indiana. So he would like be part-time in Indiana, part-time on set, and then he'd go back to Indiana to be with his family. And he's just a wholesome guy.
Isn't that nice?
Isn't that nice?
Can we say that he follows you? Is that a thing we can say?
He does follow me on Instagram, yeah.
We were kind of hoping he'd see this John,
John, if you're there.
Mr. Green, can you like this video?
Mr. Green, if you're listening, what's your favorite type of ice cream?
Mr. Green, if you're listening, listen to our hour-and-a-half take on your movie.
So when I was thinking about this episode today, I was thinking, this is like what the fourth movie we've watched with OCD where there's like a crime. There's also a mystery.
Yeah, I would say that the mystery and the crime itself are not like intertwined. In fact, we'll see that the mystery intrigue part of this is about 10 minutes of the movie. I would so much rather put this in the teen romance than anything else, because even the climax has nothing to do with a missing billionaire.
No. But just the fact that I'm wondering statistically, if you have OCD, you can answer this question. Are you frequently somehow finding yourself near crimes? Not like I'm not saying you're causing them, but do you find yourself connected to crimes?
Right. Like, so every once in a while, the IOCDF will put something out like, people with OCD are more likely to be the victim of crimes instead of committing the crimes. What about like innocent bystanders being like, I have OCD. What the hell is that?
Let's get into Turtles. We have so much to cover. Great movie.
I got some last little bits about the story and all that stuff. So John Green has also written such books as Looking for Alaska, Paper Towns, and the one you have definitely heard of, The Fault in Our Stars.
I read that whole book in like 5 hours with an online free PDF version. So I was just scrolling this giant Word doc for like 4 hours straight on my phone.
Well, now he's not going to listen to our entire episode if he knows you pirated his book. God damn it, Juliet.
But I did buy this one, Turtles.
Okay, all right.
The one that counts I bought. Like the one that we're talking about. Imagine if we...
The one that counts. Yo, fuck that other book. All those got movies or miniseries. I think the most popular one was The Fault in Our Stars. I think after The Fault in Our Stars came out, that skyrocketed a lot of the popularity. And right when the Turtles book was published, they started development on this movie. Now, the issue was a few things. Number one, development hell. It changed hands a couple times. Number two, COVID. COVID really got in the way of this movie, which, again, I can relate to. You remember Chloe Hengel's novel, Unthinkable Things? You read that, right?
Yes, I have that back there.
Oh.
Yes.
Yeah, I read it too. I'm so
good.
so happy that's finally published. So the book starts off with commentary about how hot Sicklet is these days. Like, oh, it's a young adult romance where something's wrong with one of them.
Wait a minute. That's a term? Sicklet?
Sicklet. I don't know if Chloe coined it, but in like the first page of Unthinkable Things, I don't know if she took it out. I read like a rough draft, but Sicklet.
I love that. Because I don't
hilarious?
think that was in the final. Or if it was, I forgot about it. That's great.
I don't know if like The Fault in Our Stars started the whole Sicklet trend, but it's a funny idea that it did.
I'm thinking of other movies or trends that Sicklet books.
I have not seen Me, Earl, and the Dying Girl, but that sounds like a Sicklet book.
Also, A Walk to Remember. That was very Sicklet.
Yeah. Okay, the movie came out in May of last year. If you're listening to this 10 years in the future, that's May of 2024. Also, what are you doing?
I hope someone in the future
thanks.
is listening to
Thank you for clicking. Oh my God.
What took you so long?
What took you so long? Soon after this movie came out, I would fly to Orlando and hang out with Juliet in person for the one time I've hung out with Juliet in person. Right? We made the very silly decision to start a podcast together, so it's coming full circle. Okay, let's talk about this movie. The movie opens with the credits with the song Oh No by Big Pig, and little did we know we were in for a playlist that the actors for these two kids are not fucking listening to. I'm sorry, 14, 15-year-old person, you are not listening to Tame Impala. That is for your loser older brother.
Well, I will say, though, we did Google it when this was supposed to be set, and it was set in the teens.
Like 2017. So we would later establish this is a period piece.
But we were like, this song?
No. Listen to Olivia Rodrigo. Don't be listening to this. Anyway, we start off with some CGI germs. Or maybe they're actual stock footage of germs. But with some Fight Club narration. Something like, Did you know that we're mostly microbes? Just some kind of like depressed existentialism. Like these lines could be edited right into like Fight Club. And I only watched the pilot of Euphoria, but it reminded me of Zendaya's character going, I was born on 9/11 or like something along like just like really deadpan.
Uh-huh.
It's also very common with adaptations of books to have lots of voiceover monologuing. Usually, if it's written in first person. I didn't read this, but I'm going to take a wild guess and say it was written in first person.
That was absolutely true. The opening montage / monologue was direct quotes from the book.
That tracks. It blends into a therapy session. The monologue turns into her speaking to her therapist about this. Basically, the first thing that came up, Juliet and I kind of laughed at because the therapist offers her, well, what about exposure response prevention therapy? And then she goes, oh, no, that wasn't for me.
And then the therapist is like, okay.
Okay.
Well, you got to take your meds.
We're starting off strong with the ICBT propaganda here, basically.
The therapist said, there's this newer intervention. It doesn't involve exposures, called ICBT.
She looks at the camera, well, what's ICBT? Let's see. In this therapy session, it's such a trope to act cooler than your therapist or to try to act cooler.
That, yes. I've never done that.
Okay, but how many people come in and think they're going to say or do something that makes Juliet go, oh my God, goddamn, they're so cool. Like under her breath.
I mean, I do feel like that sometimes, but I keep it on the down low.
So there's like 2 or 3 clients you have. They're like, oh my God, I'm never going to be as cool as this person. All right, relax.
Play it cool. Play it cool.
First time I watched this, I remember the jarring cuts to the microbes being like, okay, this is cool. Uh-oh, is this going to get old? It was like what Pure did, that show Pure, without the comedy bits. Thankfully, towards the end of the movie, I actually think it wasn't overused.
I think it was really good, especially in the beginning too, to like show that, because if someone is watching and they don't understand how OCD can feel or they don't know what OCD is, just to have the like monologue paired with her being in like 2 places at once, where she's like sitting in the cafeteria or sitting in her therapist's office, and then also we have these flashes of like what she's really thinking about. It was definitely very powerful.
Yeah, there's a couple things in this movie that I think are handled in ways that no other movie has been able to, and I'll get to that in a little bit. The next person we meet is Daisy, her loudmouth friend with the colored hair, and I wrote LMAO, we're in a book for 14-year-olds. She writes a Star Wars fan fiction, which she's always telling our protagonist Aza to read.
Aza, yeah.
Aza never does it, which we'll have a confrontation about later on in the film. But one thing I really did like about Daisy, and this is actually one of my favorite parts of the movie, is friends, especially close friends, can pick up on all the OCD moments and all the OCD slang, which is very helpful. Like Daisy notices immediately at the very beginning of a thought spiral and goes, yes. Thought spiral, and Aza goes, yeah, just catches it. And I've had friends do that for me too, and I'm like, damn, that's actually very impressive.
Yes. Daisy is also so great at like being compassionate and then also knowing when to kind of push Aza out of her comfort zone and then when to kind of back off and let Aza, do what she has to do.
Yeah, I think Daisy deserved better. Daisy deserved better than Aza. I'm Team Daisy.
I'm Team both of them. I think that there were lots of things that Daisy could have communicated to Aza leading up to the kind of big confrontation that they had. And I think that Aza also was going through a lot and had a hard time being a present friend.
Oh my God, the communication was there. It was just in Star Wars allegory. That's on Aza, not on Daisy.
The feud.
the feud. Okay, so they're leaving Applebee's, and we're going to see that restaurant several times in this film.
Which is such a Midwestern thing. I love that you can tell, like, just as a Midwesterner, you can tell John Green is a Midwesterner because the fact that, like, he sets the book in Indianapolis and then has, like, one of the key locations be an Applebee's. Like, for those of you who are not from the Midwest, like, Applebee's, Chili's, and, like, TGI Fridays or, like, Outback Steakhouse are, like, or Texas Roadhouse. Those are, like, staples. Like in any town there will be one or many of them, and if you live in a small town where there's not a lot of other like restaurants, those places become like the third space where you go to hang out or drink or eat, or that's where you go for graduation dinner or when you're going on your first date. Like he really got that right. especially in high school.
Guys, Juliet is educating us on our culture.
Yes.
We need to sit and listen.
Have you ever heard of a triple dipper?
That's very important culturally
If you
significant.
don't know what a triple dipper is, Google it and then go get one. Anyway, on to the movie.
One thing that Daisy says that I actually really liked is when, okay, so Aza has her father's car, and her father died, and that's a big sore spot for her. I don't know why I said it like, someone said something mean, and that was a sore spot. Like, oh, her dad died. It's a sore spot for her.
Jeez, empathy, Peter.
Yeah, right? Oh, she won't fucking get over the fact that her dad's dead.
How dare you? And
she has his car, and she's very protective over the car. And when Daisy wants to bring food into the car, Aza is defensive about it. And Daisy doesn't say you're so obsessed or obsessive. She says you're really anal about your dad's car because she knows there's a difference between being anal and actually having an obsession about it.
Spot on. Yeah, and one of the things John Green said in an interview about, signing the rights of the book to be made into a movie is like one of the few things he had written into the contract was, I need you to portray OCD accurately because it often gets romanticized or sensationalized, and I need it to be portrayed the way it's written in the book. And you can really tell that they did a good job of that throughout the movie.
That's the line you gotta walk with all this kind of stuff. Like, we may or may not talk about this later in this hypothetical next episode, but when you're doing something that you're not supposed to make look cool, you have to still make it look compelling because you have to make it look like it feels. Because obviously nobody with OCD is cutting to microscopic footage. But the reason that it's like that is to make us feel what she's feeling through, a metaphor or an allegory or comparison. To make us feel this comparison. And it's hard to do that without making these conventions look cool or romanticized. There's a line you have to walk. And I think the line was walked.
Indeed. He walked the line. Yes.
He walked the line.
I walked the line.
Aza also has a hardworking teacher mom played by Judy Reyes, whom you probably know from Scrubs. Aza is enamored with going to Northwestern for college, and her mom is like, hey, maybe you're not well enough to do that. She also runs into her mom at school a lot, which would be a fucking nightmare for a high schooler.
Yeah. And her mom, I think they also depict the parent-child relationship pretty well of we see Aza is in this time of adolescence where she's wanting more space. She's just going through normal teenage changes. And then on top of that, she also has OCD, and her mom, because she's an only child and her dad is no longer alive, her mom has a lot of, fears of her own about what will happen to Aza. Is she going to be okay? So we see this power struggle throughout it where the mom is really wanting to be really supportive, but also it makes Aza feel like she's being stifled. And then we see Aza trying to have her own independence and push away, and kind of the push and pull of that is a big part of the film.
Do you think we were meant to look at Aza's mom as just overprotective and suffocating because she has a role being a teacher at a school, and were we meant to look at her like that and then eventually side with her a little bit more when Aza's condition gets worse?
I think that would be a John question.
John, come on, John. At this point in the movie, the plot kicks in. There is a billionaire that's gone missing, and there's
and
a big amount.
On the TV at Applebee's.
Yes, on the TV at Applebee's. There's a billionaire that's gone missing, and the billionaire is the father of a teenage neighbor. Teenage heartthrob neighbor with just the most dazzling eyes. But that's not important right now because there's money involved.
And the teenage boy's mother died. So the teenage boy knows Aza from grief camp.
Ah, yes, grief camp. They come up with this plan to go onto the billionaire's property and look for clues.
As to where he went.
I didn't write notes down beyond the words Scooby-Doo-ass plot.
I wrote something.
Okay.
In that scene where they're trying to figure out what happened, there's a monk reference because Daisy says to Aza, why can't you have the type of OCD that makes you an amazing detective? And Peter and I went, oh, monk reference. Oh, my God.
They get to the property and they start losing the trail. Yeah. Daisy hits him with the monk reference.
Yes.
Before they get there, as they're going to the property, they're canoeing, and Daisy does this is important. Daisy sees how Aza's not handling the contaminations very well, so Daisy, granted, I don't know if distraction counts as avoidance, but she does kind of handle her. It's this mix of relatability, frustration, and melancholy, and I think that was just kind of handled really well. I do like how they had trouble coming up with an infectious disease to get Daisy out of going to work, because this book was written before COVID, and this movie was made during COVID. So all you really gotta do is whip out the big C word, and they'd be like, oh yeah, I went to a wedding and someone else got sick, and that would get you out for days.
Be like, all right, take those 2 weeks.
Take all the time you need. So they get to the property. They get caught pretty immediately. When the security guard shows up, this writing is extremely from a book. Now, I don't know if... Who knows if this line was actually from the book, but when small characters like security guards that don't come back later have zingers like, what are you doing, aside from trespassing? As if we're going to get to know this guy. In real life, the security guard would be like, hey you, what the fuck? You know?
This is private property. Go back that way.
You know who caught them? Aaron Sorkin. He was just out there like wandering around. My least favorite thing about this movie, and I like this movie, by the way, my least favorite thing about this movie is the coverage. And by coverage, I mean what the camera angles show us or what they don't show us. And they use shallow depths of field, so like out of focus stuff. Like, I'm in focus. The stuff behind me is kind of out of focus. This is kind of a shallower depth of field. They do a lot of tight close-ups of faces, and that's not bad by itself, but it's usually saved for like intimate emotional moments, which there are many in this movie. But for the love of God, show us the location that we're in. Show us the location we're in. They all walk into this giant mansion and they say, wow, this is a giant mansion, but we're already in close-ups and I have no idea what the fuck the mansion looks like. Like, the most frustrating thing is that later in the movie, they do have a wide of the mansion. I just hit my mic. They do have a wide of the mansion. So it's not like they're hiding not being able to afford the mansion, which was my first thought. I got a little worked up, all right?
It's important to you. It's important to you. Yes.
Oh, man. Okay, so yeah, that's what coverage is, and I would have liked more of it. They have a meet and greet. He, like, sends them home or something. Basically, I have a gap in my notes until he has a fucking Tumblr.
Okay. So let me talk about that, because that's really funny. So once we saw there was a Tumblr, Peter and I were like, okay, this cannot be in current times. Like, this must be a period piece. So they have this interaction at the house because the security guard is like, well, if you don't really know, what's his name, Davis? If you don't know Davis, you're going to jail for trespassing. So they go into the house and Davis is like, yeah, I know them. So he sends them home. And then Aza is like looking at his Tumblr to see what he's been up to. And oh boy, does this boy have depth.
Oh, he's got feelings. He's got
talking
depth.
About like poetry. He's got these pictures. It's very like art boy. Aza's like, aw. And was this before or after the box of money? This
was just before the box of money, I think. One thing that I would like to say is that it doesn't say Tumblr on the screen because like you never want to actually give brand names to anything when you're making a movie. But it has the icon for notes, which is something only that fucking website does.
You clocked that within like 2 seconds. You're like, oh, it's Tumblr.
That's fucking Tumblr.
Yeah. For those of you who are under 17 listening, Tumblr was a very popular blogging site where people, kind of like MySpace, you could post, you could repost, you could comment. There were lots of fandoms on Tumblr.
Back in my day, we had fandoms on Tumblr.
Yes.
But then they canceled pornography and that website died.
That was the downfall.
So we figured, oh shit, this is definitely taking place exactly in 2017, if not earlier, which is why we had all these millennial bops too. So the next thing we see is they're having school lunch, or at least I assume they're having school lunch. We don't know. I don't see a fucking shot of the cafeteria. And they hear from Davis. Whenever Davis and Aza text each other, it is hysterical. It is motion typography that is color coordinated. It moved and had different text sizes, and it looked like a motion graphics final project that someone would make in college. And the font, whenever they Google something, goes back to like a serif font in front of like a search bar. It is jarringly different. Every time the blue or orange words popped up, I just lost my shit.
And I said that's very similar to In The Fault in Our Stars when they were talking. I'm pretty sure it was kind of the same like text overlay. And that's a very young adult kind of aspect.
Even outside of young adult, the idea of text to represent what's on the phone has been used since 2013, 2014. Like, if you go back and watch like brooding indie movies like Fruitvale Station, like that was a relatively new concept then, and it's used a lot now. What is hysterical is instead of just like type to do that, it's I want to see you again in big bold letters, like in orange or whatever, you know? And like that is just so extra to me. I don't know, it made watching it a lot of fun. I also don't know where in this movie this happens, but she calls Asa Holmes Holmesy a lot. Daisy does.
Holmesy, yeah.
That nickname is just not working for me. I assume it worked better when it was being read by a person and not being said out loud. But maybe my wife is listening to this and she's telling me in her head to like let people enjoy the things that they read and watch.
There was also a John Green cameo around this part of the movie, like mid-beginning, where John Green plays Coach Adler, who is like the gym instructor. And apparently, John Green also had a cameo in The Fault in Our Stars, but he was so bad at acting that they cut it out.
What?
Yes.
I didn't know that.
Yes. So here, I guess he really took this part seriously. He made the cut.
Wait. Okay, hold on. Because I had a whole thing written out about John Green's cameo in this. I was gonna talk to John. I still can. So we got the cameo.
John, if you're there.
John, if you're there, if you're listening, the cameo scene at this basketball game. Okay, what Juliet said might track a little bit more, because what I thought happened was that there was some scene or subplot cut out of it because it's a movie made for HBO Max, and any number of reasons things get cut out or whatever. And then I would assume somebody said, "Hey guys, we can't cut that scene." Why? That scene is John Green's only cameo. And I just picture everyone in the editing room going, "Oh, fuck." All right, so you know what, John, Mr. Green, Mr. John Green, I know you follow Juliet. I know you can see this. Was there a scene around your cameo that got cut? Like, there were extras in a whole separate location and everything? My producer would literally beat me up if I asked for a scene that had that much going on, but it went on for like 2 shots. All right, so something was there, please.
Well, there was a squat. Apparently, they had him do a full squat, and then they cut it.
What, like with weights or just
no, like squat, like on the court.
They just had him. They just, all right, John, drop and give us 5. Like, okay, that's enough about the cameo. I gotta scroll back up now.
I also want to talk briefly about some of the early like compulsions we see that Asa is doing in response to her contamination and kind of existential based OCD. One of the kind of frequent things she has the urge to do is open a like sore that's on her finger, because she has all of these intrusive thoughts about getting some sort of like staph infection or C. diff or something that would cause her body to completely lose control and her to become very sick. And she feels the need to kind of reopen the sore and to clean her hand and to kind of almost like drain the infection out. I think it's very well done, because not only do they depict like a very difficult physical compulsion that for a lot of people, like OCD will say, yeah, do this thing that objectively it's like, no, that's like really dangerous or really harmful to you, and that could lead to something really bad happening. But then with OCD, it's like, no, but you also still have to do that to prevent the bad thing happening. So I liked that, but I also liked how they show how like body-focused repetitive behaviors can also be compulsive. So doing something repetitively that involves like picking a scab or opening a scab or doing something with your body, but that's not because of like a BFRB. It's because of OCD and intrusive thoughts. And she's doing the behavior in order to try and prevent something bad from happening.
It must be hard to sometimes differentiate a compulsion with a BFRB and when they overlap and when they don't.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it really does require us to ask, like, what's the function of the behavior? What is the job of the behavior? What is it trying to achieve? Why are we doing it? And how can we take that information and then make our best guess of, like, okay, this sounds more OCD related, or this sounds more BFRB related, or some of both. Yes. I won't get into too much of the therapy stuff.
Well, hold on. No, that's actually why we're doing the podcast. So I have a follow-up question.
Yes, please.
If you're doing the fidget spinner, right, to stop the BFRB, isn't that taking away the compulsion, which is what ERP is?
Yes and no. So a lot of what we do with body-focused repetitive behaviors is behavioral changes and like stimulus control. So we want to help someone have less easy access to the behavior. We want them to kind of replace the behavior with something else. So in a way, it's like redirecting. But with ERP, it would be more of like, okay, that's possible, maybe, maybe not. How can we sit with this distress and then kind of move towards our values? Versus with a BFRB, usually it's a lot more just like, it feels like it's like out of your control. Like you're not choosing to do it. It's just happening. And it's less fear-based and more of like, I need it to feel right, or this is soothing to me, or this is comforting to me. I know this is harming me, but I also feel like I can't stop.
Does trichotillomania, did I pronounce that right? Does that fall under BFRB?
Yeah. Okay. Yes. Yeah, so body-focused repetitive behaviors would be like skin picking, hair pulling, nail biting, cheek biting, cuticle picking or biting, nose picking, things like that. Okay. They all have really fancy names, but I only know dermatillomania and trichotillomania. One of them is like ornithophalangia or something.
They all sound like onomatopoeia. Like they could find themselves into a really corny rap song.
Yes.
Later, their relationship continues. More blue and orange text flies by the screen. Oh, also, Daisy starts dating this other character that we definitely care about. They do a double date in the mansion.
And Applebee's.
That's true.
See? We're coming back to Applebee's.
We're always coming back to Applebee's.
It's the home base.
The Midwest home base.
Follow your heart.
It's the Holy Land. So this one scene of her opening up to Davis about the nature of her condition of obsessive compulsive disorder.
Yes.
I'll give this to the director because the director wasn't John Green. But this one's hard to shoot because in this scene, you're opening up about a condition that puts you in a constant state of despair and mental torture, but she delivers it like it's we're about to kiss energy, And those two things are hard to do at the same time. Davis's acting actually makes sense because as a teenage boy, he's definitely just spacing out.
There was and I guess maybe like if we put ourselves in Aza's shoes, maybe she's trying to kind of diminish some of the intensity of it because she's, it's a really vulnerable thing. And she's telling this to someone that she has a crush on. And she's like trying to kind of play it cool of like, yeah, I have these thoughts and it's torturous and terrible. But there was a very like calm and like blissful aspect to it that both of us were like,
It was a little philosophy bro, and there are a couple moments in this movie that are a little philosophy bro.
And it works though because her OCD is so like existential as well as it's like huge picture and also very, very, very small picture of like bacteria and then what does it mean to be alive? What is living?
That's true. Yeah, there's like a lot of when we get to the J. Cameron Smith scene, we'll talk about that. But in this scene, Davis says something along the lines of, I like how your brain works. It hums. And I feel like there is an unsaid babe to every one of his lines. I like how your brain works, babe. It hums. Like,
Peter was laughing at this teenage heartthrob a lot throughout the movie.
Look, the only reason... Okay, I'm being way too harsh on these teenage actors. I'm also being way too harsh on this movie that was not made for me about this book that was not written for me. But come on. It's my podcast. I get to have a good time.
It's my party. I'll get high
It's my party. I can be mean if I want to. At some point or another, he just straight up gives her money.
Like $10,000.
Straight up bribes them to see her again. Now, I went on Wikipedia. In the book, this was gotten from stashes that his dad left behind around the house. Was that the reason?
Yeah.
In the movie too? Okay, so he wasn't just being like, all right, let's cut some checks, you know?
No. He was just like, here, I found this money in this Pop-Tart box because my dad was hiding money all over the house because this guy's so rich. It's like chump change to him.
Yeah. We do make our way back to Applebee's, like Juliet says. It's as if we didn't already have multiple ad breaks on HBO Max. When we were watching this together, I had the better HBO plan, so we had to like stop every once in a while. You know?
Was every like 5 minutes. It was not every. It took us like 3 hours to watch this movie between commercials, talking, and then the movie.
This is what streaming services are in the 2020s. You're just getting assaulted by ads, even though you're paying now.
Yep.
We get back into the movie and we just see another advertisement. It just happens to be worked into the scene. Their relationship continues, Asa and Davis.
Yeah, they're having a moment in the pool where it's like, are we going to kiss? Are we not going to kiss? But there's some pretty significant, especially for like teen romance, like that really did set the scene for what comes next because they're close to each other. It's steamy from the pool water. It's like,
ooh, and you got the lights in the heated pool, so you see the steam rising. It's literally steamy. Oh my god.
So they basically kissed, but because of Aza's OCD, she's so afraid of becoming sick and infected and germs that for her, the idea of kissing someone, it's like, oh, the trillions of bacteria that are in the other person's mouth. So she's really conflicted because it's like values and hormones and who she is, and then OCD is like, nope, but you really shouldn't do that. And we can see that in that scene.
There are a lot of movies we watched where like, oh shit, the power of love overcame OCD for this person, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. She's not Jack Nicholson. Melvin overcame his OCD with the power of love.
Despite what movies tell you, usually OCD is kind of persistent. Despite love, despite other things. So before they have their first kiss, so after the pool, Asa and Daisy are hanging out at Asa's house, and Asa's like, I couldn't date him. Like, I can't even, like, I'm afraid of everything. Like, I couldn't even kiss him. And Daisy has a really sweet friend moment, and she's like, but what if his bacteria is really nice and good, and it's like good bacteria, and then you're kissing, and it's like all the good bacteria, and the way she's like making light of it in a kind way, it was like, that was really wholesome to me, like seeing that conversation. All I wrote in my notes were kissing convo. Aw, sweet friend is empathizing, plus making light of OCD, but in a nice way.
There are ways to make light of OCD in ways that are both respectful and genuinely hilarious. And
she did it.
I do like the idea of it improves your gut health. It's all about the gut health.
Yes.
Okay, let's see, what else do I got? Davis's little brother gives her a clue to the whereabouts of their father or something. No fucking 8-year-old that was playing video games the whole time would provide helpful evidence to a relevant case. But don't worry.
You don't know that, though. 8-year-olds are really, really, really perceptive.
Yeah, it'll come out like 40 years later in a therapy session, but not like right then.
It's true. He'll be like, yeah, I remember my dad was talking about the fork, or it was like some location, but we didn't know it was a location. What was it called? It was like...
I don't remember.
Hitchhiker's U or something.
The intrigue plot hasn't like reared its head in like 20 minutes. I've like,
there's a crime, but it's really like,
it's fuzzy what the crime is,
And no one's asking Davis like, hey, your dad is missing. Your mom is dead. How are you doing? No.
They are just kind of like hanging out at the giant house. Are there adults there?
I don't think so. Maybe like there's like a house cleaner or something, maybe, but I don't get the vibe.
Is there an Alfred to his Batman? Is there like a butler hanging around? I don't think so.
Maybe that's in the unedited version.
Maybe. So their relationship progresses to the point where Davis flies her to Northwestern as a surprise tour to tour the campus because everything, including love, can be bought. Now, he does this against her mother's knowledge. Asa thinks she'll get away with it because of reasons. And they get to Northwestern. It's not a very long flight. Where do they live? Indianapolis, and they go into Chicago?
It was probably like a 35-minute flight.
Yeah. She sits in on a college professor's class as if, well, I guess it was a lecture hall, so people can like come in and out, but like that's fucking weird, as if they're not going to notice a completely new person that's under the age of 18 is suddenly sitting in their class. Granted, I would similarly fawn over J. Cameron Smith being like, oh my god, I loved you in Succession, like, but for different reasons, And
this professor, Asa really liked her because of this TED Talk she did about like something biology related, right?
Yeah, something
And then
along
I
those lines.
said, is her whole like interest in this professor and going to the school like a compulsion? Because she's trying to like solve this bacteria debacle.
Yeah, and then she gets there and she hates it. Like, oh my god, the food sucks, the campus is awful. Why didn't I do an actual tour of this place?
Or are we seeing how OCD attaches to the things that are important to us? And like because she cares about biology, because she really does love learning about microorganisms and things like that, is that why her intrusive thoughts are about this?
I mean, that's
John.
possible. Did we know, like, what her career ambitions are?
No, but when we do the end scene and there's like flashes of her future life, I'm pretty sure she's wearing like a lab coat.
Asa, what's her 5-year plan? I know you're like 17. What's your 5-year plan? What's your 10-year plan?
Throughout the movie, the inner monologue of Aza's thoughts of like, they think you're a freak. Everyone's looking at you. They think you're just a scared girl. Like, oh, you pay attention. Like, no one's going to like you. Like all of those like inner thoughts. And you can see her kind of spiraling. That was really like, I remember the first time I watched it, I was like chuckling, but I was also like, aw, like, yes, that is very relatable and very spot on. I want to talk about the scene where she meets this. So she goes to the lecture. She sits in on this idol of hers, her lecture. No, it's philosophy. It's not science. I'm wrong. It's philosophy. It's about like, what does it mean to be alive? What does it mean to like make our own decisions? How do we know what's driving us? Which, okay, spot on, John Green. Thank you. So OCD. So just like, what does it mean to be alive? What are these things that are impossible to know? So then she sees this professor sitting just on a park bench on the campus doing some grading. Very professorly things.
As you do.
As one does. Between
These are my
classes.
office hours.
And she goes up to her and she's like fangirling. And then she says like, I don't think I'm real. A lot of my thoughts don't feel like they're mine. And then the professor's like, what do you mean? And then she talks more about her experiences with her intrusive thoughts. That scene made me want to cry.
It was a powerful scene, and it also tapped more so into existential OCD themes rather than contamination OCD themes. Like, obviously, it played a role, but it's also the scene where we talk about the phrase, it's turtles all the way down. There's a million versions of the story, but essentially what it is a scientist is making a speech about how the world is orbiting the sun, and a little old lady raises her hand and goes, no, nuh-uh, the world's actually on the back of a giant turtle. And the scientist goes, okay, what's under the turtle? It's another turtle. What's under that turtle? It's turtles all the way down. And it's kind of like an absurd story, but the point of it is that a lot of people, when they go through things like trauma, when they go through things like addiction, going through things like obsession, and they're coming back from it, they've got all these extra layers to them. They're actually very scared that none of the original you is still there. It's a very Ship of Theseus kind of idea. And the reality is we are the sum of our experiences, and who we are just might be our experiences. And that's also okay. So, yeah.
Well said.
It ties back into the very beginning where she was talking about how, like, oh, most of you is actually just microbes. So, right after that, that's true. She does give him the first big smooch. And on the plane ride back, that kiss to dread for contamination OCD, it's very OCD, very spot on the plane ride back.
You had fun? Ruined. Something good happened? No, it didn't.
You get exactly 2 minutes of feeling good. Then I'm back.
Yes. And in this scene, we really see, like, the extent to which her OCD is impacting her. I'm sure most of you who've watched the movie remember this scene, but she's like in the bathroom and she's doing the compulsion with her sore, and she drinks hand sanitizer, and our boy Davis is like knocking on the door. He's like, Asa, are you okay?
Baby, okay?
And we see her just in so much distress. And that's kind of where the movie really kind of takes more of an OCD front turn. A front turn. Not a back turn. A front turn.
It takes a frontal turn. So she gets back. She has it out with her mom. Her mom starts clamping down on her.
Which, when we think about, okay, from Aza's perspective, yeah, her mom is tiptoeing around her. Her mom is controlling her. But when we think about it from a parent's perspective, like OCD or not, if your kid just flew across state lines during the day without telling you, of course you're going to be pissed off. I would hope so.
I can only imagine as a teenager if I went to a different major city without telling my parents.
Let alone flying on some boy's jet.
On some boy's jet. Oh, Mom, I just want to really quick hop on this guy that I kind of know. He says he has a jet. Like,
oh, God. Skipping school, too. Like,
I'm skipping school to go on his jet. Like, we're one step short of a private island, you know?
Yeah. Yes. You don't know with these billionaires.
Yeah, you don't know with these billionaires.
Yeah, so like shortly after she gets home, her mom's pissed at her. She's in her room. She decides to read Daisy's fan fiction because
finally
Daisy's been writing this since she was in like 5th grade. She's never looked at it, and she decides for whatever reason in that moment, because she's like spiraling, maybe she's like, I gotta distract myself. Davis is texting her like, are you okay? And
Daisy's always like working the fan fiction into every conversation. Like, hey, Asa, you read this yet? Or hey, like that fan fiction I'm doing. It's like me with like a movie or the movie or the one that this movie. You watch this movie yet? It's on streaming. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hysterical because the content is something that yet she doesn't really want Asa to see unless she like secretly wants her to see.
Well, I think what happens is like because it's gone 7 years since she started writing it and Asa is not ever reading, she's becoming more and more angry. And then instead of channeling that into like, hey, I don't feel like I'm being thought about equally in this friendship. But what high schooler's going to say that, right? She is taking it out by writing these fictional stories about this character named like Aba or something.
Aba. I think one letter's changed.
It's something very, and it's like, oh, she was on her self-absorbed bullshit again, and she doesn't know how to get out of her shell, and it's such a burden being around her, and she brings everyone down. And so Asa's reading this after, just spiraling about the kiss, and then she's realizing.
Do you think? Okay, so when she finally opened it up, did she just go to the most recent chapter?
Probably.
Okay, so she didn't go back to like when she started writing it when she was 15, 14 years old or whatever?
Well, when you're in 5th grade, you're like 10.
You're like 10, yeah. Well, the thing is, it's much like Doctor Who. Like, if you want to understand what the hell's going on, you do have to go back to the 60s, you know?
She was like, no, I gotta say, it's like when someone's like, will you do it? And you're like, sure. And you're like...
She's a fair weather fan. She's a fair weather fan. She'll watch it if it's on, you know?
Yeah.
What follows is Asa picks up that this fan fiction is very obviously about her. And what comes is my favorite part of the movie when they're both in the car just before an awful car crash, which is not my favorite part of the movie. I want to make that very clear.
Car crashes?
Oh my God, horrifying car crashes. My favorite part of any movie. My favorite part is when Daisy calls her out for being so self-centered and quizzes Asa on basic things about her, saying, what's my middle name? And stuff like that. And
what's my dog's name?
What's my dog's name? She has to dig deeper in her brain, but, oh, you have a cat, And that is the most righteously brutal confrontation. And in that moment, Asa takes nothing from that conversation. And that was my favorite part because OCD makes you one self-centered motherfucker. It really does, because everything's about you and the stakes are so high so often. And honestly, not a lot of other OCD movies at all handle that. So I'm really happy this one did.
Yeah, within Asa's hierarchy of needs, first and foremost, it will always be like safety and control and feeling like she's okay. And because that is just like a never-ending revolving door, there's no space for what people are feeling, what other people are needing. And then Daisy says, you are pathologically incurious.
That's a great line. So it's very writery, but yes, that's a very great line. Yeah.
But ouch. And then they get in a car accident, and then the car that was her dad's car is destroyed. And that's when we see her really fall apart.
Honestly, one of my favorite lines in the movie happens just after when she says, it's my dad's car, and the cop says, your dad won't be mad at you. Like that, that's not a writery line. That's a tragic character line, Like that, that's that good shit. I've been talking too much. You take it from here.
With the hospital, as well as like just the general way that Asa's OCD is portrayed, John does such a good job of showing the like ironicness of OCD and like the almost like the paradox, because she's so afraid of becoming sick and of dying and of being taken over by these like microorganisms. And yet, because of that, she's afraid to be in the hospital where she needs to be, because she had to have surgery because she got in a car crash. They had to she had like a bleeding liver or something pretty significant. And then we see what is so common, where objectively all of these things are happening that need to be addressed. But then because of a person's OCD, their kind of ability to like prioritize like hierarchy of importance is really distorted. So when her mom says, you're going to have to stay here for a couple days, then we'll take you home, then we'll help you start to recover, that feels so unsafe to her that she gets out of bed just after the surgery, goes into the bathroom, and we see her like trying to open her sore. We see her drinking a large amount of hand sanitizer, and we see her just like doing so many things that are physically so dangerous for someone who has just undergone a pretty traumatic car accident as well as have surgery. They have to like pump her stomach, and then she wakes up again in the hospital, and her mom's like, it's okay, I'm right here. But that was so well done, because I'm sure you can speak to this too, Peter, like with OCD, it doesn't follow any like logic or common sense. And this was just a great example of that. But it was also really painful to watch.
It also underlines the fact that suicidal ideation is not the same with OCD.
Oh, yeah.
It's unclear if she even had suicidal, like I don't think she even had suicidal ideation, but
I didn't see that.
The sort of self-harm she was engaging in was used as a preventative measure.
Yeah.
And that's so different from depression, suicidal ideation, that kind of stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, there wasn't a part of me like in that scene in the bathroom that was like, oh, I think she wants to die. She was like so terrified of becoming infected and having sepsis or something like that, that she would do anything to prevent that from happening, including put her life in jeopardy.
She survives the experience. Davis comes back. We're kind of coming up towards the end of the movie, and I just know that the mystery comes back like 12 minutes before the movie's over. They're like, oh, we gotta really figure out our own stuff. And, oh, mom's starting to date again. Oh, you know what? Maybe you can give me space and I can give you space. And like brick by brick, she's like, rebuilding everything.
She starts taking meds again. She starts seeing her therapist more frequently.
Yeah.
I think they're gonna give ERP another try.
Okay. I don't remember that in the movie, but I just thought that was hysterical that there's like, you know what? Maybe I'll give this ERP another good college try. Daisy and Asa only make up when Asa goes to the art show of that character that's definitely really important to this movie. And they go to this like sewer underground thing. Like,
you ever been to an art exhibit when you're in high school, but it's like in the city sewer system? Maybe it's an Indiana thing.
My wife's a lawyer and she says that there's no liability there. Absolutely none.
Yeah, just bring minors. Underground. She said values over fear.
Values over fear?
Because she values her friendship. She wants to show up. And that's when they realized that the clue the younger brother was talking about was very it's like the jogger's mouth or something like.
Yeah, it was something like that.
And they're like, wait a minute.
Oh my God. We are already where we need to be right when I figured it out.
And it's like facing your fears might also help you solve a missing persons case.
That's our second Monk reference of the movie.
You're right. Right place, right time.
Right place, right time. So then they find out, oh, that's the mystery. He killed himself. Mystery solved. Shit. Better go tell Davis. It kind of ends like that,
She tells Davis, but then the movie ends where Davis knocks on her door and he's like, hey, my brother and I are going to be leaving for a while. We found this really great school for him in like Colorado, so I'm going to have to leave. And they have this bittersweet moment. And then he gifts her this picture that John Green mentioned was really important to him because it really depicted like how his thought spirals feel. It's like a famous painting. He wrote down the name of the artist. I don't remember. I'm sure we can Google it. I saved it. But Davis gifts this and she keeps it.
And we see glimpses of the full life she is going to lead.
Oh, I loved that part.
Mm-hmm.
That part, that part was so... Okay, so what we've seen in a lot of these OCD movies is that once the conflict is resolved or the relationship is achieved or the murder has been solved, it's almost as if the person's OCD is like, poof, like it's gone. Everything's good. This is a much more realistic depiction, but it also ends on a hopeful note because we see the beautiful full life that Asa is going to have. And we also acknowledge that there will be bumps along the way, there will be tears, and it's still going to be a beautiful full life. And that was so like John Green. John Green at his best.
It was really nice, and she'll have, you know, romances with different people, and she'll have a family and honor her father's memory too, and all of these things they're going to happen for her, and the movie does end on kind of a sweet note.
Yes. What are your final thoughts?
I like this movie. I think even though it might not be made for my tastes, like it really set out to do this thing for this audience, and it really knocked it out of the park in that way.
I really enjoyed it as well. I think that it's so clear because John Green has OCD that the way he describes the kind of internal experience of OCD as well as the experience of like loving someone with OCD or being in a relationship with someone with OCD, like he got that really spot on. And even though the content of Asa's OCD, I haven't experienced like all of the just like general ways that it impacted her, I was like, oh, I can totally relate to that. Or like, oh, I remember being there. And I think it's such a great feature because hopefully younger people will watch it, and if they also have similar intrusive thoughts or have similar kind of experiences, that it will give them a starting place for understanding themselves and then seeking more support. John Green said that Asa's character really taught him how to show himself more grace, and I think that's a really great takeaway I had from it too, of like everyone's doing the best that they can. And when you have OCD, there are going to be times that go well. There are going to be times that are harder. And giving yourself compassion and grace throughout the whole process is so important.
There was a critic that said something about the book that really encapsulates my feelings on this movie.
Okay.
The critic said something along the lines of, you needn't be suffering like Asa to relate to her and relate to the story. You need only be human. And I think that they showed OCD in a really cool way. And I'm glad that it came out when it did. Obviously, I'm sad that it was knocked back a few years because of COVID, but I'm glad the movie came out and started off our little podcast too.
Yes! And I brought my stuffed animal turtle for this.
Yes, yes.
Right before we recorded, I was like, hold on, I gotta go get my turtle.
Juliet loves her props.
Peter gave me the biggest eye roll. I couldn't even see it, but I felt it as I walked out.
I'm glad my eye rolls are being able to be felt like telepathically now.
It's like, whoa.
Yeah.
So in terms of the Juliet stamp of approval
Yes.
for OCD, I would give this like 9 out of 10. Like it was really good. I don't know what 10 out of 10 would be.
Those are pure numbers.
I would give it 9 out of 10. Yeah. Really well done. Really heartfelt. I am sure the book is even better because it's like rich, and I've read part of the book. I'm really bad at reading books, but this summer I'm going to read the full book.
Maybe it would have gotten that elusive 10 if the therapist didn't just go, oh, you don't want to do ERP? Okay, fine.
It's really well done. Yes, it's very good. I'm glad we watched it.
We were talking about this hypothetically, but I guess there's really no point now. We're kind of wrapping this podcast up for a while just because stuff's going on in life, but we are going to do one more. And we're going to be talking about a movie that we've been dancing around this entire time. That's is the movie in the room with us?
Is there an elephant? I mean, a movie in the room?
Don't think about the pink poster behind Peter.
You've heard of the pink elephant. Now think of the exposure poster.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, we are going to be having a very exclusive conversation with the director and the writer of an incredible movie called Exposure. And this is going to be like a tell-all.
So exclusive. I'm going to drop all the drama.
If you listen to the Patreon Exposure event, or if you listen to any other Exposure event, this is going to be incredibly different.
Yeah,
because
I think
it's going to be very exclusive.
So exclusive. It's going to be limited to
Maria,
Jordan, Maria, Steve, and Zach.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of Intrusive Plots. I'm Juliet. I hope you know that by now, but if you don't, I'm an OCD therapist and an educator. You can find me on my Patreon as well as on my Instagram at OCD_therapist_Juliet.
I'm Peter. I wrote and directed a thriller about OCD called Exposure. It is streaming everywhere. You can even watch it before we talk about it. In marketing, that's called a call to action.
Exactly.
Yeah.
What's our hook?
You can follow me on petercannon.film on Instagram. It's my filmmaking page. It used to be called Debut Film Mistakes, but I rebranded. It's not that now. Follow us on Instagram at intrusive_plots. Let us know what films you'd like to see us review next, except that line no longer applies. We're doing one more.
One more. See ya.
All right. Bye, y'all.